Hey everyone, welcome back to Northside Baseball. Ethan and Brandon here to continue discussing everything going on in the Cubs world right now. Kate Horton is coming up. We talked about that in a separate video. It's very exciting. But something a little less exciting is what's going on in the bullpen. Obviously, the weak link on the team this year has been the relief crew. A lot of the relievers have sort of gotten their feet under them after a tough start. But one guy who is really, really struggling right now is Ryan Presley, who is the closer slash was the closer slash who even knows what's going on with him right now. And so I just want to get your thoughts, Ethan. How do you feel about Ryan Presley and the way he's been struggling so far this season?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because early in his career, when he was with you know 2013, when he prime Ryan Presley, when he's with the Twins, right? Again, you can always say when they're young, they're at their best. But again, this is what the Chicago Cubs are kind of known for. They get players when they're a little bit older, and they say, "Look, you're a veteran player." It's a tale as old as time. And I think now, at the age of God, how old is Ryan Presley now?
37, I think.
Yeah, 36. So in baseball terms, he's an old horse, right? He's
Mhm.
getting up there in age and he's not performing like everybody wants him to. It's no surprise out of me. And it's what I will also say is that it's disappointing to watch because all of 2024, what we spoke about was that all of our kind of innings in the beginning, maybe innings 1 through 6, things were always going, everything was coming up great. And then when we got through the last few innings, everything would fall off the rails. And Ryan Presley is kind of the root cause right now of that. And luckily, we have great outfielders like PCA. We have people in the infield like Dansby Swanson who can, still make those saves, even if there's a fly ball or, there's a pop out to the outfield. However, I'd rather just get strikeouts. What's your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think you bring up sort of the key issue with Ryan Presley right now is that closers need to be able to get strikeouts. Obviously, I mean, you can get out
It's in
however.
the name. It's in the name. They need to close.
Sure, you get outs however you want. The Cubs have a great defense, but like Ryan Presley has 5 strikeouts in 13 innings this season. For any pitcher, a starting pitcher, a relief, whoever it is, that is bad. As a closer, that is unplayable. I mean, again, I know I sometimes throw numbers at people, but just the key things I want to hone in on here. If you go to his baseball savant page, Ryan Presley is in the lowest, the one
The
percentile
1%.
in the major leagues in the following categories: in whiff percentage, so on the amount of pitches he gets swings and misses on, strikeout percentage, and hard hit percentage. So that means he's not striking anybody out. That means no one is swinging and missing at his pitches, and that means that he's getting hit as hard as any other pitcher in baseball. His changeup, I kid you not, is the single worst pitch in baseball according to WOBA. Like it's a joke how bad he's been. And again, this is something that we talked about, in the offseason when the Cubs traded for him. Sure, it's nice that the Cubs get a veteran guy who's had a lot of success with the Houston Astros in recent seasons. He's a good arm to have. But there's a reason he lost the closer job in Houston. It's not just because they signed Josh Hader. He's not a closer anymore. And the fact that the Cubs traded for him as like their one big relief move this offseason is why we're in this situation right now. They didn't want to give Tanner Scott the money that he was worth, and he's doing great for the Dodgers. They did the same thing with Kirby Yates, and he's doing great for the Dodgers. They didn't want to trade for one of the other star closers on the market. This is just what happens when you I don't want to say you penny pinch, but when you sort of cut corners on a key part of the team, and the Cubs are really struggling for it. I mean, there's really no close lead right now that feels safe with the Cubs because they don't have a closer, and the closer that they've been using has been terrible. So
Yeah.
it's really frustrating to see. And obviously the team is good enough where they should trade for somebody. But overall, I do think it's about time that Ryan Presley, I'm not going to say he gets DFA'd and kicked off the team, but he needs to be out of the closer's job.
I think the funny thing is even outside of the Cubs cinematic universe, if you want to call it that, is that in many of the top baseball teams right now, whether you're talking about the Red Sox, the Orioles, even the Mets, I don't know why I'm pointing out the Mets specific. I meant to say the Cubs, but the Mets, the Cubs. I think one of the biggest problems for those teams in particular right now is the pitching is the pitching lineup, whether it's our starting pitchers or the closers, right? There's problems galore with these teams. Or I think, and that's the problem with the staff, right? They go, okay, we load up on power hitting threats and defensemen, and that's great. And we completely forget about our pitching staff at the end of the day. And now we run into these problems where it's again, it's like, oh, we'll pick up one guy and we'll see what happens. And we picked up him and we picked up Ryan Presley, and now again we're falling off the rails where again he's not getting strikeouts. Again, we have great defense on the outfield where we could still win games, but I'd rather just not put pressure on the outfield or to our fielders at all.
Yeah, I mean it again. It's just a frustrating. The Cubs are clearly very good this year. They're leading the NL Central by a pretty significant margin. They look to be in the driver's seat in a division that's otherwise pretty mediocre.
Knock on wood, it stays that way.
Obviously, there's injury issues in the starting rotation. But even there, there was more investment. They signed Matthew Boyd to a multi-year deal. They got Colin Ray as depth. They at least poked around with guys like Jesus Luzardo and Max Fried, even though, they didn't necessarily land those star pitchers. But again, the bullpen just, for some reason, Jed Hoyer in the front office seem to think that they can just build this great bullpen out of a box of scraps. They did it a couple times when the Cubs were really bad for a couple years there in like 2021. But in the last few years where the Cubs were supposed to be competitive, the bullpen has been really, really bad, or at least it's been very inconsistent from, there's been months where it's been great and then there's months where it's terrible. But it's just frustrating because it's a key part of the team. I mean, in this modern era of baseball, in this like post 2015 Royals era of baseball, the bullpen matters. Having true relief aces matters. It's how you save leads. It's how you perform well in the postseason, especially. And the fact that the team, acquired a 36-year-old Ryan Presley and was like, all right, pretty much what, they made other smaller moves like Caleb Thielbar and Eli Morgan, but like they were like, okay, that's our big move with the bullpen. Here's what happens when that big move doesn't work out. That there's no safe leads anymore. So again, it's just a situation of hopefully Ryan Presley figures it out. He's still getting a lot of ground balls. He still has some of what makes Ryan Presley great. It's just he's obviously not the same pitcher he used to be, which is what happens when you age. And so hopefully the Cubs recognize this. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they will be aggressive at the trade deadline for a couple really nice relief pieces. And hopefully they're still obviously, in the driver's seat in the division when that comes. But overall, I am a little perturbed that somehow these starting rotation injuries aren't what I'm most frustrated with this team. So that's my overall thoughts.
Well, as always, we'd love to hear your guys' comments, thoughts, whatever you guys are thinking, we'd love to hear it down below, and we will talk to you guys there.